Welcome back, my nomads. Welcome back to another Bitcast. We've been away for a while, but now we back at it. I'm here with my boy Zach. What's going on, Zach?
Oh, same old man. How you doing?
Doing good. So I know you said you had a question for me.
Yeah,
So what's your question?
I got a question for you, and I'm curious what your input is. What do you think is the most underrated dramatic emotional scene in movie history?
Hmm. In movie history. Do you have
Or in
one?
terms of what you've seen? Oh, I got one. I already have it.
All right, while I'm thinking, say yours.
Okay. I think when one of them, I think anyway, is when Darth Vader takes off his helmet in episode 6 and Luke sees him for the first time with his eyes. Something that people don't talk about. You know what I mean? I think right there is like that's what captured me anyway.
Ooh, ooh, that's a good one. Ah, I just had a brain fart. Oh,
Keep in mind, underrated, not something that everyone talks about. You know, we already know the ones that everyone talks about.
right. Oh, you're blowing my mind now because I just had one. Because I just had one because I be talking about it all the time. Like, yo, this is like really emotion, and people just cast it off because of this kind of movie.
Right.
Ah, well, for one, because I can't remember it yet. I'll say this. If you haven't seen The Foreigner, starring Jackie Chan, let me just let you know, Jackie Chan is not just a stunt guy or a martial artist. Dude can act. I
Yeah.
mean, this isn't a spoiler. It's in the trailer. The whole movie is about how his daughter is killed in an explosion by terrorists, and he's on a journey to find out who set the bomb off. And while he's finding out, he's just kicking ass. But man, he gives such an emotional performance. It's wild. It's wild. Um, Another one that's not really talked about. Well, it kind of is. In the original Lion King, when Mufasa dies. Woo!
Yeah, not the new one. The new one's the
Nah.
fact that Jeremy Irons wasn't Scar was a disservice to the. I
Oh,
feel like, not to get away from this subject, but the fact Jeremy Irons is the equivalent of James Earl Jones in Lion King. Like, you can't, if you're going to replace Scar, you might as well have replaced Mufasa. Like, he was that big of a deal because let's be real. Like, James Earl Jones has a commanding voice, right?
mhm.
But Jeremy Irons was in the majority of that movie. He is Scar. And then you're going to replace him. Like, nothing against the guy who played Scar, but it's Jeremy Irons. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, I agree, man. I mean, Jeremy Irons, he made Scar, man. Like the surliness to his presence and the the Shakespearean delivery of his lines. It's just like he's
It's
like,
perfect.
hey, Uncle Scar, if I become king, what does that make you? A monkey's uncle. You're so weird. You have no idea. Just his the way the
Oh, yeah, it's
lines roll
perfect.
off,
Yeah. It's what
and he
makes me
even did his
love
own
that
singing.
movie.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, I don't know about you, but I think great movies for me are made by the villains. You know,
No, you're right. And I think the hero is as good as the villain.
hmm
You know what I mean?
like for example,
And
The Dark Knight. Love the movie, but I don't watch it for Batman. I watch it for Heath Ledger's Joker.
oh, oh yeah. And Tom Hardy's Bane's good too, you
In
know.
The Dark Knight Rises, oh yes.
Nothing against Heath Ledger and the Joker, but Tom Hardy did just as a good job with Bane.
Thank you. Speaking of underrated, bro, that movie gets no love. Tom Hardy gets no love. His portrayal of Bane, for the first time in that trilogy, we got to see Batman challenged as a we saw him get challenged by a player who was both intellectually off the charts and physically off the charts. With Batman it was either or, but with this trilogy, you finally got to see both of that in one body, and he killed it in the way it just played out. I mean,
I
it's
agree.
wild.
No, I love Tom Hardy. Absolutely.
It's wild. Um, now, I still can't remember, but I will say another underrated emotional performance. Um, it's going to sound cheesy, so bear yourself. The original Avatar in 2009. When Natiri, played by Zoe Saldana, or Danya, as she now is pronouncing it, uh, she when she's freaking out at Jake when she finds out that he's like, been like a double agent, against her people, and she's just like, you could just see the emotion on her face, and she's just freaking out, and she's yelling at him in English and in the Navi language, and just going off and crying and screaming, and it's crazy. I mean, not just for her performance, but you gotta give it up to the animators who animated her performance to the character.
Yeah.
It's just wow. And to this day, I've seen her in a lot of stuff. She became that it girl for a lot of like 2010 and on movies. But I've seen a lot of stuff. I just think Natiri is my favorite character that she's played in a movie. It's very emotional and stuff, and I don't think it gets the praise it gets. And to segue to our main topic today about Avatar 2, I was kind of let down to the fact that her character took a backseat in the sequel. It's three and
Said
a
the
half
same
hours
thing. It was
long.
kind of weird. It was very interesting that they went to that approach. I But at the
Yeah.
same time, that's kind of the motif of the entire movie. Jake's taking a whole back. He's taking that whole part of his life a back seat. That's
Yep.
his whole thing, right? The whole tribe, everything's taking a back seat. Everyone, in every
Mhm.
way possible, is that in order out of survival, he has to put everyone on the back burner just for their own survival. And I liked that, premise, but at the same time, it's like Zoe Saldana's character is so well done that it kind of did a disservice as well. Like she only came in when she was on a warpath for a month now, more than a month. So I figured anyone who hasn't seen it has. So no, I completely agree with you. I think my favorite character, if you want to know, Stephen Lang's character on the Colonel, Stephen Lang, right?
Yeah.
Perfect. Man is perfect
I
for
just
this.
realized that his name is Quaritch,
Yeah,
but we could talk about the crazy names in this movie a little later. Yeah, I just want you to keep giving your initial thoughts before we go into the topic.
yeah. Like when he, I just liked everything about how he didn't miss a beat, knowing that he was a clone. That was the best part. You know what I mean? Like his personality was like mission above everything else, was just perfect to me. You know what I mean?
Yeah, 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 definitely, definitely. So, what do you? Well, keep going, keep going. Your initial thoughts of the movie, man. Break it
All
down.
right. So because I saw it when it was like what 7 o'clock, 6 o'clock my time.
Hmm.
I got out. It was like 9:30. It was already past my bedtime. And I'm just like, I text you immediately. It's like, I'm going to need time to digest this because there was a lot going on. Because my thoughts on this. I was coming in expecting I wasn't going to like it. I
Right,
had every intention not to like it.
right,
And I didn't not like it. I actually quite enjoyed it. And there was very few flaws in it to me to even critique at. And as much as I'm not one of those people that will separate who creates their product. I can separate the creator from their product, and Cameron's just a Looney Tune with the stuff he says. All right, but I can still admit that and enjoy what he puts out. Just because I enjoy it doesn't mean that I condone the stuff that he says or believes in.
right,
That's he's entitled to that. But it was just so well done in so many different ways, and we had this talk. where can we find a way to make this shorter? The thing is, if you make it shorter, you can I don't at this point, what's 2 hours and 50 minutes and what's 3 hours and 30 minutes? It's like buying $100,000 car. If you can afford $100,000 car, you can afford a $200,000 car. So at the end, it doesn't really matter. You're just like, you're negotiating with peanuts. It's an extra 30 minutes of character development. You know what I mean? Which is what really drives this movie, because they had so much focus on the minor characters. I'm using that term loosely in this, with his kids. Like, I liked the time where it would have been cut to make it shorter. Like, I liked what it did.
Got you.
How about you?
So you said, yeah, okay, all right. You said, yeah, all right. So I'll give my initial thoughts. Like you, I'm a James Cameron fan.
Yeah,
I'm always like, yo, you always bet on Cameron. You always bet on Jim.
always.
Good old
He
Jim.
hits home runs.
And then, like, a few months before this came out, I don't know. I was, what happened in my life. So I was a little off the grid. And then when I got back on a few months before the movie came out, I'm like, what's going on with Jim? Is he
It's just saying
going
crazy
down the
things.
route that Ridley Scott went? Is he going crazy? Is he saying some?
Yeah.
I think your description of Looney Tune is perfect because some of the stuff he said, and we're not going to get into that because this is not what this is about. But
No, absolutely.
I watched the movie. I'm sitting there dehydrating myself so I wouldn't have to go to the bathroom. I'm watching. And I'm like, damn.
I had
James
64
Cameron.
ounce mouth doing that. I shouldn't have done
I was like, damn,
that.
Jimmy did it again, man. He knocked
No,
it
no, he
out the park.
does.
He
You
knocked
know,
out. I'm just watching this and I'm like, I'm watching him. I'm flabbergasted because I'm like, yo, this shouldn't work,
mm-mm.
but it does.
He has so much control in every aspect. Usually, when someone has that much control, it's not well done.
Oh yeah, 100%.
And he has control in every aspect of this movie, right? In terms of the originality of it, it's his idea. In terms of everything that was done, from every scene to every CGI to everything, had his fingerprints in every aspect of it. Like, you're usually, when you're a micromanager, you can tell when you start slipping up, because you're not meant to have 10 different hats. This man had 10 different hats in this, and it's
Oh
incredible
yeah,
that he was able to pull it off for a movie this long.
he's a film auteur, and not just a film auteur. I mean, well, yeah, every aspect of film he has his hands on. I mean, he's in the. There's stories of him in the workshops, making doing clay models of stuff for the designs and everything, and it's wild. But
He's the Daniel Day-Lewis of film creation.
yeah, yeah, man.
Daniel Day-Lewis always goes in, he's going in to, like, completely just like, whoa, what did I just watch? And that's why he does one movie every 10 years. And he wins an Oscar, right? And that's just how he
Yeah,
is. But he's the same way. Like, Cameron doesn't make a lot of movies anymore. Like, he's
no,
very particular with what he does. And I like that he's willing to do what he wants, and he's unapologetic about it, which is great. You know what I mean?
yeah, and of course, you know me, I'm a critic. I have my critiques. I do think there
Of
are
course.
some flaws. But for the most part, I'll say the good things. Like, I see what he's doing. He's creating a franchise, which is why Natiri had to take a backseat. And Jake, he kind of took a backseat. He had
He
more of
did.
a presence than Natiri, but he did take a backseat, even though he's narrating it. And I do see in the future films like Avatar 3, I believe that he won't be the
And 4
narrator.
and 5.
Yeah, I believe he won't be the narrator. I think it will be one of the kids, probably Loak, and that's one of the critiques is the names, and I'm gonna get to
Oh,
that.
he's going to die in one of them.
Oh yeah, for sure. But uh, I I'm just, because of the technical aspect of everything, I'm just blown away because water, if anybody knows, water is the most difficult thing to recreate in the digital space, and it looks so real. Now I did see some little trickery here and there where some close-up shots of hands I was like, that's no way that's CGI. That's definitely they painted somebody's hands blue and then they shot it. But movie magic, it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter because it still
You wouldn't
worked.
know. I had no
Yeah,
idea.
it doesn't matter
This,
because it
at the
still
end of the
works.
day, like I was so blown away. It's like unless you're looking for it and you're just curious, like you're looking for a flaw in something that could be different because you're so blown. Like the visuals alone, because at first I don't really see 3D movies, and I saw them like okay,
Yeah, same.
I'm just taking a second to get used to it. Like this, it felt very natural being 3D. Most 3D movies you see, you're like, okay, they're just putting this in for like whatever effects, right? But this is like you can, you felt like you were a part of it. It was very immersive. You know what I mean? And it
And
was
you know
just it.
why? Because it was shot in 3D IMAX. That's why.
Yeah, it was very immersive. It felt like you were a part of it. It felt like you put a VR headset on and you're just kind of taking a ride with them, type of thing. And it was very, and typically when you have movies that are like this, right? This, even though the plot's simple, it's like Mass Effect, right? The most simple story on the planet. Who cares? It's about the character interactions. It's about who cares if you're going on a mission. You're looking for when you get back on the ship, you're talking to your squad so you can build a better relationship with them. That's why people like it. This is the same thing. It's
Right.
everything when it's not getting crazy and overwhelming with action, which there wasn't a lot of it, you know, in terms of all those scenes, like those quiet times, I guess is the best way to put it. Like developing everything, like that was so well done, you know?
Right. Right. Now I do have some critiques. Because I really want to get into why, like, how Cameron works. Like, all this works. This movie is like 3 or 4 films put into one, but it still works. I
Mm-hmm.
want to get into that, but before I get into that, I want to get into the critiques, the flaws I have. Let me just start with the biggest one, and then we'll go to the small ones. The biggest one I have, and you're probably gonna be like, "This is a nitpick, bro," but I just can't get with the character Spider. I can't. That character, why? Just why? I I understand you needed a human.
Yeah. No,
I
I get it.
understand you needed a human for that, to work, but everything about him just feels wrong to me. I mean, why is this grown kid who lives with both Navi and humans walking around in a loincloth? Why is this human kid who was raised by both humans and Navi hissing? He's a human. I mean, when you see Jake in the first movie become like getting like he first gets into the avatar body, he's roaming around, and then he goes on a mission. One of those like leopard Navi animal comes at him, he hisses at it, and it's like an instinctual reaction to it. It's like because it's in the DNA, he does it. Whereas Spider, he's just doing it out of like mimicry, and it just feels wrong.
Right.
And he's wearing a loincloth. It just everything about that character just feels wrong. I mean, the hair, everything. He looked like he walked
Right.
straight out of Disney's Tarzan. I was like, are we really doing this, James Cameron? Like, what is going on with this character? like,
Because I'll give you this. So while that makes sense, but here's the thing: humans, for the most part, are painted as demons, and you need to
yes.
have a clear separation between the characterization of humans and how they're portrayed, right, versus the few select that are not portrayed that way, and you need to have a clear divide as to why.
So the divide is him looking foolish as hell, and
Yeah, no, I get it, but hey, but that's you got to think of it, right? Like Cameron was not thinking on it in terms of a human perspective when he was doing this. He was doing this in terms of how does everyone else in this tribe see him, and there he's going to reflect that. Now, you made a good point that he had to do it because he had to save his father at the end of the day, right? Like that's the human part of him. Like
yeah, the
that's just
character
going back,
needs to be there. There's a
right?
clear story plot reason he needs to be there, but he can aesthetically be different. He could still wear like maybe shorts instead of a loincloth. I mean, come on with the hair. And why is he hissing every fight? Because it
Yeah.
shows in the movie he grew up around humans too. He didn't just grow up around Navi. So why is he like,
Right.
yes?
No, yeah, he split his time.
I'm like, bro, like, what are we
Yeah.
doing here?
No, I get it.
But yeah, like the character, I just couldn't get with it. I'm like, every time he was on screen, I'm like, this is a joke. This is a joke. But a small critique, another critique I have, a small critique, the names, like, I don't know if it's because of the Navi accent that I had the names, like the beginning of the names, the letters different. It turns out the oldest son is Natayem, but I thought it was Atem. And then the middle son, well, the younger son is pronounced Loak, but in the movie I thought it was Noak with an N. So I'm like, maybe it's just my crazy ears, but the way they were pronouncing the
Yeah,
names, I had them totally wrong.
me too. And I wish there were subtitles and that type of thing so I can kind of remember that. But I'm very curious the where this language was derived from. What was the inspiration? You don't think of a language out of thin air without having some kind of inspiration, right? So I'm kind of curious where he got that from.
Yeah, you're
You
right.
know what I mean?
Anytime they make a language for a video game or a movie or whatever, it's based on the root is based on a different language. So you're right. I am wondering what language this comes from. Probably got to
I'm
watch
sure
the
he picked
behind the scenes
something.
of the
He
first
probably picked
one.
something that was so obscure. You know what I mean?
I don't think so. I don't think so because now this isn't something I noticed while I was watching the movie, but it was something a lot of people have brought up. Um, the culture appropriation, and when I first heard this, I'm like, "What are you talking about?" Like, it's just a movie. Like, what are you talking about? But then someone pointed out that like the Navi, the forest Navi and the water Navi are Native Americans and the Maori respectively. Like for example,
Maui.
the Maori. Yes, yes, yes. The Maori, for example, someone pointed out that he pretty much didn't really tweak the culture, the culture. He just copy and pasted it pretty much. And I was like, that does seem
So,
problematic, but there's there's um there's a article that said something like he consulted the Maori people and Cliff Curtis, the actor who played the the tribe, the clan's leader, he also consulted too. So I'm like, all right, well then if he pretty much got, coaching from Maori people, then what's
who
the
wrote this
problem?
article? You already know how I feel about this. I feel like it's just a bunch of white people finding reasons to complain. And
I don't know. It
as
just went over my head.
at a certain point, like, look, I think cultural appropriation anyway is just a dumb buzzword. It's just a buzz phrase to get people moving. At the end of the day, no matter what, your thoughts aren't original. It derives from someone or something. That's just how it is. And given how connected we are as a human race, I say that term as literal as possible. Like we're connected because of how globally, because of our phones and everything. Like we have the ability to see how other people are, how other cultures are without actually going there now, right? I mean, it's kind of hard to not have something that's not going to take from someone else or something else. You know what I
Well,
mean?
isn't that? I mean, like I said, he got the okay from Maori people
Yeah,
and
I
Native
mean,
American
look,
people. He
he's not going to
consulted
do
them.
something just willy nilly. He's going to do his homework. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
At
and
the
plus,
and it's just I I found it very fascinating that as much as he characterized how humans were, here's my biggest complaint with this. How he characterized humans, obviously, how he portrayed them destroying the earth, all that. Okay, fine, whatever. That is partially true. But how he made the different tribes of the Navi, right? How different they were in terms of physiologically the jungle Navi were compared to the water, the
yeah,
tail, the inherent prejudice, human based traits, right? It's natural for us to be prejudiced towards someone that we don't know. That's just, or different. That's just how humans are wired. I don't care how anyone cares. Like Think about it in high school.
That's how life is. Animals do that too.
Exactly. Just think of it in high school for anyone who disagrees with me. What table did you sit at, and did they look mostly like you? Then yes, okay, then my point's proven. So, regardless, I just like how he tried to put human characteristics into the Navi, right? And I'm curious as to why he didn't try for something different. Now, are all life forms governed by universal rules of how we are? Are we just naturally going to segregate ourselves into these pockets? Or, like, what was his intention with that? You know what I mean?
Well, in the Avatar universe, it seems like um physiology, they were separated for a purpose. I mean, you're not going to
Yeah.
see the water tribe, for lack of a better term, the water tribe people flying
How else
around
do
the
you put it?
forest.
No, you're right. But you
Like
see,
you're
there
just
was like
not
a
going to see it.
natural, like, I don't know, like
And it made me wonder because the son,
distrust.
he fell in love with the one water tribe chick, and I'm like, if they have a baby, he's a hybrid of a human, and she's a water tribe. I wonder how physiology that's going to work out, how that kid's going to
Yeah,
look.
it kind of picks like, okay, so which one are we going to hate more? Are we going to hate a different Navi that's different than us in terms of their physical capabilities, or are we going to hate a hybrid? You know what I mean? Well, I just found it funny that there was nothing original, that he could have found other ways. Like, those are just human based things that we do. I guess since humans are the benchmark of how sentient life forms operate on a societal level, I was just curious, like, how come he didn't do something else that why they would nitpick over? You know what I mean?
Well, I mean,
I,
it's like someone pointed out when Rings of Power and House of Dragon came out, and people were talking about the different races in both of them. It's like they were like, why is race such a big thing, such a big deal in all these fantasy shows now? And the answer is race has always been a big thing in fantasy. You
right.
know, dwarves, elves, humans, they always been fighting each other. And when it comes to James Cameron, um, it's like you said, he does a very simple story. And the thing about James Cameron, his stories are simple, and the message he's trying to convey is not hidden at all. So of course he's going to be pretty blatant about like, oh, we're going to make fun of them because their tails are shorter. Oh, we're going to make fun of them because they ain't going to swim fast enough. Oh, and the humans, all of them are pretty much evil. And the one good human, well, he's acting like he's a Navi, stuff like that. And the other good humans, they're helping the Navi, but sometimes they
Yeah,
go into
I wasn't
avatar
bothered by it.
bodies.
I like that. I was just curious why he just didn't think of something different for it. You know what I mean? Like, because he had a chance. Like, this is like the real first time that you're seeing an interaction of different Navi, of how they interact with each other, right?
Hmm.
And the whole point of the premise of the story was to show how humans have pretty much, like, they're the screwed up race. Look at what we're doing. Why would he display similar things that we do naturally wrong in another species, race, whatever you want to call it?
Maybe to show
You
that
know?
they're not so different from us.
Yeah.
They just have learned to coincide with their surroundings instead of fighting against it. Maybe that's his whole message. It probably is because it seems like his whole
Maybe
Avatar
I'm
universe,
overthinking it, but you can't overthink Cameron type of storytelling because there's always
because
layers,
he
you
doesn't.
know?
Let's be honest, his stories are not that complicated, but
No, they're not
he
complicated, but there's depth to it. There's a lot of things there.
visual depth, I will say. He's a master at visual storytelling, and I mean, there are shots in this movie that I'm like, holy crap! Like,
Yeah.
and even the action scenes. He's directed some of the greatest action movies of all time, and the guy still got it. He's shooting these fight scenes and and then these two blue cats are fighting each other, and it's like, oh, and it's like, oh,
Remember the
it's raw.
conversation we had about the best, like, sequels?
Hmm.
Like, what movies are all good? Like, we picked Lord of the Rings as John Wick, things like that, right?
Yeah,
Are we going to have a conversation that this might be the best franchise ever when it's all said and done?
I don't know. And when it's all said and done, you and me are probably going to be old ass men. Because he said
I swear to
this
God, if he does
franchise is
another 10
probably.
years to do each one, no, because he's already got them done. That's the thing. He was waiting to see how this would perform box office wise. Now, it
But he
hasn't
did say
performed.
he's going to have to train an apprentice to finish them because he's probably not going to live long enough. He did say that in one article. I'm like, that's wild, bro.
Well, it's like building Notre Dame. It took 500 years. How many different people ever saw that before it was done? You know what I mean?
I mean, that's wild, bro. I
Can
mean,
you imagine we're on our deathbed and we're just hanging on to see Avatar 6? You're like, come on, we've lived this long. Like, come on, let us finish this out, please.
will we even care at that point?
Probably.
Yeah, probably.
People showed that they cared on this on such a, I don't know, 14-year difference, right? And I'm just astounded that they spent over $1 billion. In order for this to be profitable, they need to make $2 billion from this. That's just a mind-blowing figure to me at the end of the day.
Well, I want to say, I mean, the thing is, Cameron works. Cameron works. His movies always raking it. And why? We said it before. His stories are simple. They're not that I mean, like I would
No,
say
there's
maybe
not.
10 minutes
There's no
in.
egregious thing that's going to upset anyone. Well, I guess that's not true. I mean, we just talked about how people are finding cultural appropriation. Like
I think
someone's
that's
finding
like
an issue with
2%
something.
of the people who watched it.
Yeah, but no, you're right. Like simplistic hero's journey thing always wins. You know, that's just how it works. You know, that's why.
And to that point, we said it on a podcast before. I said any franchise that's based off of Judeo-Christian mythology of the Christ figure always makes
Oh,
money in the
wins.
box
That's how it
office.
works.
And what do we have in this movie?
It
Kitty
sucked you in.
is Jesus. She is Jesus. It's not as anybody else not seeing this. She's Jesus. She was born of immaculate conception from an avatar body. And
Anakin Skywalker, take your pick, dude. All these guys. Now,
Neo,
here's
Anakin
the thing.
Skywalker, John
What
Connor,
makes you think she won't be bad?
James Cameron. He's not going to
She
make her
could be
bad.
You sure? Not a Path of Redemption?
In any of these movies, when has a Navi been evil?
Who had the avatars? Obviously, the human ones.
Yeah, but natural born Navi. Which one?
There hasn't been one. But where do we not start somewhere? How do we don't know all the tribes. We haven't understood. We've
That's
just
true. There's
gotten
going to
one
be a fire tribe. I wonder how they're
right.
going to do
So
that.
we have no idea how they're going to react to how humans see things. They're like, shit, you're right. You know what I mean? That makes sense.
Bro,
What you're saying makes complete sense. You know,
I just don't
because
see it.
at the end of the day, right? Like if there's going to be war and all this other stuff, like there's always going to be traitors. That's just how it is, no matter what.
But we already had a traitor, Spider.
He's not. I'm talking about Navi. I'm talking Spider is just.
He kind of did betray them, though.
Kind of, but at the end of the day, you know, it's not going to be surprising. Like, here's the thing, right? It was not realistic to have the Navi win in that. Let's be real.
That's
at some
true.
point, they're going to have to lose to make this like realistic in terms of one side doesn't always win. All right.
Especially the side that's still using bow and arrows when the other side is using like machine guns.
Fascinating. They're
Gunships.
changing their minds. Like, look at their village. They had all of that stuff in there, right? Where they had those pods. They
because
had
of
the
Jake.
Tanks.
Because
exactly. So they're changing their approach.
But that's one tribe. At the end of the movie, they were charging with spears while Jake had a machine gun.
But that was just like the last movie too, right? And then things change, and you're like, all right. But as soon as you start adapting and you start going away from your traditionalism, you're letting yourself in for human nature to creep in. The other side, you know? And it kind of reeks in like a disease. And that's the whole point. That's the narrative of this whole thing.
Yeah.
Right. And while he makes really good points on that, it's just we're the virus, and the virus is starting to creep into the Navi. What's preventing them from not going? Because in order for you to beat them, you have to be them.
Dude, you just opened my mind because now it makes sense what you're saying. There's going to be, I mean, they did it to the Native Americans back in the day. They would give them what they call
Yes,
fire water, bring the ugly side out of them, give them money, cash, status.
horses. Keep in mind, horses were not an American thing. All right,
Hmm.
so I mean, horses were brought here. They didn't use horses in warfare the way that that was a relatively new thing. So I mean, that's just one aspect of it, right? I um
So
I
there's
just
there's going
think
to be not. I don't think it's going to be Kitty, but I do think there are going to be like at least one Navi trader. It makes sense story wise.
right. And how do you not know there's not something equivalent to her? Right? You have no idea. We don't know where this
We
could
don't,
possibly go.
but she
Right.
is Jesus of this story. I mean,
Yeah, no, she is, yeah.
and did you see? Do you see where he's going with the story about how the planet is a living organism? You see that
Oh,
too,
that
right?
was like that from the first movie. Like that makes sense because the religion, as much as the
The
tribes
planet
have a
literally
different
talks to them.
the approach of the religion's pretty much the same, but their approach is different. It's how they get there, right? But the planet is like a living. I guess it's a moon more than a planet, right? Is that how I'm getting this?
I don't know. I don't know.
Because there's a giant
Oh yeah,
planetoid type of thing, so it's probably doesn't matter.
yeah, yeah.
This
It
thing is a
doesn't.
living, breathing thing, and they're connected to it, right?
Hmm.
So it only makes sense one to have someone who's in touch with that, where there is a messenger
So
who
maybe Quaritch is the opposite of Kitty.
it's like a
Maybe.
matrix,
Yeah,
just the chosen one,
yeah.
Agent Smith,
That's what I'm
that type
thinking.
of thing. Yeah, right.
But
That's what I'm
she
thinking
she can
too.
control everything and stuff like that. I mean,
Yeah,
let me know. How do you feel about the decision to have Sigourney Weaver play a 13-year-old?
yeah. I mean, that was weird, but at the same time, who else would you have it?
A 13-year-old. Bro,
Yeah. I'll be
I
honest
saw an
with you. At first,
article.
I didn't even notice until you told me about it, and I was like, "Oh yeah, that's right."
I saw an article where they were talking about, oh, it's great. Well, she was talking about how she trained her voice to sound younger, and I was like, did you? Because you still sounded like you were in your 70s to me. like,
She
I'm
doesn't
like,
sound like an old woman though, But yeah, I get what you're saying.
she sounds the same, and it was odd. I didn't see that. I didn't understand why he had that like vision where she sees herself and she's talking. Well, not herself, but she sees Sigourney Weaver's character and she's talking to her, and I'm like, so you got two Sigourney Weavers. They sound the same to me. I mean, it's not like she changed the pitch of her voice or anything. She just changed like the fluctuation of like certain words. Instead of saying hi,
Blows
she's
my
like
mind. She's in
hi.
her 70s.
you know. So I'm like, was a very odd choice to do. I don't understand.
I guess you want to just keep it consistent. I get it. It's
So you
just it
basically
makes it
want her
easy.
to be the same person. Like you want Kitty to be the same person as the human character. I forget her name.
Now, do you think that they find a way to reanimate her original body, or hear me out? The end of the first movie was her going into the tree, right?
Yeah.
And she was being absorbed. Her her spirit was taken. What is not stopping him from going the direction that she is the spirit or the essence of the planet? Because hear me out. You said that she's Jesus.
Kitty,
Christian
yes.
Christian theology has it where the Son, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost, right? The Trinity is what is emblematic of what God is. So what is
Right.
not making him seem like that she is part of the planet who happens to be God? Jesus is the living, breathing representation of what God is.
So I was thinking the same thing, and I think that's her name. The human character, Grace Augustine, Dr. Grace Augustine. Um, I was thinking the same thing, and I think we already got a glimpse of that with the vision. I don't think it was a vision. I think it was something that actually happened.
I think it's memories. It's like of her living through that.
Yeah, I think like her spirit actually talked to Kitty, And I think it's only the beginning. I think the planet's gonna, take Kitty even further into that space, and she's gonna soon. Kitty might even become like the human embodiment of the planet. You know, if we're talking about Judeo-Christian mythology, you
Yeah, that's
know,
what I was saying. I think that's we're already there.
like yeah, like the planet will be God and Kitty will be Jesus.
Yeah, that's the whole
I
point.
think that's
Yeah,
I think
that's pretty
I
much
think
where it's
that's where
going.
it's going.
Yeah.
But other than that, I mean, there was a lot of uh swimming in this film that I do think could have been,
I had no
trimmed
idea.
down. I
I
do think
couldn't
it
tell
could
you.
have
I
been
thought the
trimmed
whole
down.
movie is about water.
Yeah, but it
No,
was a
like
lot
tell me
of
how
like
hard
minute.
that is. You wanted to because you were talking about the CGI, the color of the hand and stuff. How hard is it to make a movie primarily underwater like this?
It's very difficult. I mean, real water itself is a bastard unto itself to work with. It's
Uh huh.
crazy. I mean, we're talking about a substance that still to this day scientists can't truly understand why it does the things that it does. And then for decades, water trying to recreate water digitally has been a nightmare. And I'm just watching this movie and I'm like, what kind of supercomputers did these people have to build in order to render these CGI water scenes with not just CGI water, but with a CGI whale and a CGI uh, kid swimming with the whale? And then
So
there's
would they have to make? Sorry to interrupt you. I'm just
yeah,
curious because I'm not literate the way that you are on this. Do
mhm.
you think they would have to make each part of the scene separate and then edit together?
Oh yeah,
So the water would be its own CGI thing, and then you layer it with the whale, and then you layer it with the Navi or whatever it is. Is that how that works, or do you CGI
yeah,
it all in one scene together, blended in?
yeah. Most of the time, to do like big scenes like that, VFX artists will cut it into pieces. So let's say, for example, remember that scene when Loak is swimming with the whale and he's just
The
looking up at
renegade
him.
one,
Yeah,
the
the
rebel.
renegade one.
Okay.
So ultimately, let's just simplify it. There's three things in that scene, three subjects. Really, there's more, but let's just simplify it. You got Loak,
Okay.
you got the whale, and you got the water. So typically, they would separate that. They would take Loak, render him out, so you get him full 4K image, whatever. Then you would take the whale, render him out, so he's done. Then you take the water, render that out, and then you would put them over top of each other so they're one image, and you would render it out to one scene image.
And that's the editor's job.
No, that's the VFX artist's job to do all of that. Well, VFX artists, plural. Um, so that's just a simplified version. Doing all that separate to
I'm
save
sure there's
on.
a way more. I think it's way more than just that. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
because you got to do like water reclusion or inclusion. I forgot what it's called.
So
The
when
way
did
the
post
light
production
comes down.
start for this? Because obviously we didn't have the ability to do this 5 years ago.
Oh hell no! I'm still to this. It's 2023. I'm still thinking back at that movie. I'm like, how the frick did they do this? Because there's a way that light hits the water, and when you're underwater, it looks a certain way, and they
Right.
achieve that.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm
Yeah,
like,
I know.
what?
Right.
It blows my mind. I remember when the trailer came out for this movie around the same time that the trailer came out for Wakanda Forever, and everybody was talking like, "Man, Wakanda Forever looks crazy. The underwater scenes look even better than the trailer for Avatar." And then I was like, "Not really." The problem was that the trailer for Wakanda Forever was just flat out better than the trailer for Avatar. You
Yeah, I
know,
think Avatar undersold what it was going to be.
Oh, 100%. If you rewatch that trailer, you're like, this is kind of a basic ass trailer, bro. Like, there's nothing really going on. Whereas Wakanda Forever, I mean, the music, the action, the shots, they they picked everything right and they put it together everything right. But Avatar, they was just like, oh, it's a Jim Cameron movie, slap it together and send it. Everybody's gonna come anyway, which is true. Let's be honest. You could have just showed us
Yeah.
a little, take of Jake going like this with his eyes and be like, "Oh, we're gonna see that, Joe, yeah, man." But I still don't understand. I mean, um, I forgot. I think it was ILM who did Transformers 2 Revenge of the Fallen. They were talking about had that big robot at the end of the movie that combined with other robots to become a bigger one. They said that crashed all their computers rendering that out. So I'm like, I don't understand how they did Avatar. Maybe that's where all their money went, was to get all these computers and use, maybe rent out
The
servers from
hardware,
Amazon.
just to how, so just to give it for people who don't understand, like I understand the hardware aspect of this. Just to house computers who are capable of doing this is an expense all by itself. Like you need to have super chilled rooms, and you need to make sure that these the hardware costs involved in these are like you're looking at Pentagon-esque type of capabilities. You have to. You don't have a choice. If the whole movie is a CGI and it's underwater, like you're saying, the amount of bandwidth that takes up just to build that constantly without any, like, imagine the most difficult game to play on a computer right now, Cyberpunk, and the capability that's involved in that times a million is how you have to make this movie.
Oh yeah, because water is nothing but a bunch of pixels put together, and you gotta render all that out. And it's like you
Now, was
said, man,
the
keeping
entire
them
movie
cool.
in water CGI, or were there actually spots where they did a lot of underwater filming and they just found a way to blend it with the CGI?
So I know a little bit about VFX. I don't know too much. From what I've seen with my untrained eye, well, it's a little trained. Um, there was only like insert shots of real hands, like the close-ups of him tying stuff together and them chopping stuff together with their hands. Everything else is CGI. Like
But it was like with someone in the suit and they traced their movements.
exactly, like they filmed underwater to get the movements right, you know.
That's the fact that you can have CGI. CGI to me is pretty much like a costume now. Like the movements are so fluid and human like that it just feels like it's just a costume on top of someone. It doesn't look fake in terms of, because there's just certain movements that humans make, right? Compared to the computer. Like before you used to see like, oh, you can tell that's obvious CGI. But just certain ways and expressions, how you move your arm, like this kind of motion, like there's just certain things that you wouldn't be able to program a computer to show. Dexterity in your fingers, things like that, right? That CGI now, well, I guess Avatar is really the first example of the CGI. Like, I can't say this is an industry common thing because it's not, because the expense was so much.
Yeah.
But we're at a point now where it's not any different than putting a costume on and it's making it seem like it's real life. That's where it's at. You know, like you can't determine if that person is, if that thing is real life or not. Like it's that good.
Yeah, it's like you said, a digital costume, because there's certain nuances in movement that you get when you actually put someone in a costume and they move, as opposed to animating it. Even some of the greatest animators on the planet can't, get those little nuances, those subtle tweaks and stuff like that. So he basically put people in motion capture suits, put them underwater, filmed them, so you can get that information of the movement, and they translated it on screen with the CGI. So that's why, people are like, why you have to do this underwater? Because if you don't, you get the Aquaman uh
That
animation
was
of
so
them.
bad.
You get them how they're swimming. I mean,
That
they
didn't
didn't really
seem
swim. They
that
kind of
didn't
like
seem
through the water. They
yeah, they
flew through
trucked
water.
around like they it's like those UFOs that go from 0 to 8,000 80,000 feet in 2 seconds. Like, oh, atmosphere doesn't exist. It's like water. Like, oh, so the resistance of water is not a real thing. Okay,
Yeah,
you
but you
know,
actually got that. You actually got the weight of them
you got
swimming.
that in here. Yeah, that's why
Yeah,
they had
even
trouble
when
swimming and
when
all
they
that. Like it
first
was.
swim in the movie, you see the girl swimming with her brothers, and you see how they move. You see the weight in it. You don't get that kind of weight with like animation. You really get that with someone actually performing it.
But we're you used to seeing that because we see you're used to seeing people swim, right? But we're not used to making we're not used to making some kind of determination with a computer showing the ability that they can program that. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yes. Yeah.
and that's the beautiful part. Like everything that you think is human movement that you're used to seeing, you're not taking an extra second to appreciate. you have to appreciate that because that took a lot of time to master that, programming that for the CGI. Because if we're
Yeah.
not used to seeing that, like we're at that point now where it's human motion capturing. It's
Yes.
not emulating it, it's exact movements and micro expressions and everything.
Yeah, you still need animators to translate the human movement to a blue
Right.
cat. You know,
And
you
this is me not knowing any of this stuff, like, but I can see it. Imagine people who actually can appreciate the industry like you can. It's like, well, now you can kind of see where the money goes.
oh yeah, man. And another thing too, this film is like 3, 4 films put into one. And like I said before, I can't believe it worked. He made it work. And I'm like, how did he make it work? And I think he made it work because I do think the runtime helped. I think he let he let stories breathe. There's multiple stories going on, but he let them breathe. You know, you actually got to spend time with each character. You got to spend time with what's going on with them. You get to spend time with Loak, with him feeling like an outcast and a disappointment. You got to spend time with Kitty, where she doesn't really know what's going on with her body, but she understands that she can speak with the world. You know, you even though Natiri is not really in the film, you get to spend time with her and Jake, like the growing pains of up up the upheaval of your family from one place to the other. You know,
Yeah.
you see her because her whole life is that tribe. You know, she's the daughter of the clans. Let me stop saying clansman, but she's the daughter of the tribal
Tribes
leader.
leader. She's the tribes leader's
Yeah,
daughter. Yeah, absolutely. Or
yeah,
chief. You could just say the chief of
yeah.
the
The
tribe.
chief. That's the word I'm looking for. She's the chief's daughter, and it was her duty. She dedicated her life to protect those people, and then to find out she has to go away to protect her people. It's rough, man, and you gotta take your kids away. They got 4 kids. You gotta take them away and move them out, and it's wild, man. It's really a family story, you know, and you can kind of get wrapped into it. You know, half of
Which
the
is
people.
why I guess the runtime is forgivable because most people are not going to go willingly see a 3.5 hour movie. There's no way.
Now, you know, there's been a lot of movies out that's have long runtime recently. You know, the Batman, um, Wakanda Forever.
But that didn't feel
This
that way.
movie.
The Batman did not feel 3 hours.
That's my exact point right there. So, I will forgive a film if it doesn't waste my time, even if that time is 3.5 hours. For example, Snyder Cut did not waste my time, 4 hours. Lord of the Rings, the
But you didn't have
extended
to go
cuts.
out to see the Snyder Cut. You could go home and watch it.
That's very true. The Lord of the Rings extended cuts didn't waste my time, even though I did watch them at home and I could pause them.
4 hours and 20 minutes. I'll tell you something right now. If anyone who hasn't seen Return of the King extended cut, you're doing yourself a disservice because that movie is like how Avatar is now in terms of revolutionizing how movies are made. And you think there's a lot of CGI in there, like there is, but the scenes that you think they're CGI, there isn't. It's just master editing.
Exactly. Exactly. And this movie I didn't feel it. You know, just like the Batman, I didn't feel it. Now
Batman,
Wakanda
I didn't think
Forever.
of it.
Yeah, yeah, you didn't think of it. I mean, the third act kind of, but
So I
you didn't
kept
feel it.
track. I every time I know, like I kept tally marks in my head. Okay, this is the end of another chapter. I look at my watch. I'm like, okay, it's an hour and some change. I just want to keep track of because I wanted to keep a mental note in my head when things happen.
And
And there wasn't a consistent time where it's like, all right, every hour and 10 minutes, this happens to keep you entertained, and then another an hour and 10 minutes keeps you entertained. Like there was just like a mixture of it. And
yeah,
when you have a movie that long, you treat it like a play. Like there's an intermission, there's like a period for you to kind of like rejuvenate so you can go back out there for another hour and a half. And I was just impressed that he was able to keep it fluid without a lot of downtime. Even though there was downtime, there wasn't a lot of downtime. You know what I mean?
yeah. I mean, even though I critique the runtime and say some things can be trimmed, I don't even think that would help. I think it would still be like 2 hours, 58 minutes, you know,
That's what
like,
I'm saying. Like, what's an extra half hour at this point?
and I mean, it's there's so much going on with the film. Um, the ending might have felt a little long in the tooth, with the whole ship capsizing. First of all, I'm like, yo, where's the water tribe at? Where's the help at? Where's the
Very,
backup?
very, very Titanic of that thing sinking as slow as it did, by the way.
Yo, so there was a movie reviewer who was like, yo, this is basically the greatest hits of all the James Cameron movies. He
Oh
pointed out
yeah,
like,
it's like Ferngully meets Titanic.
yeah, he was like, oh, that's from
Yeah.
Titanic. Oh, that part's from Aliens. Oh, that part's from Terminator. Oh, that part's from dot dot dot. And it's
Why?
like,
Yeah, why not? You've made the greatest franchises ever in human history. Put it together if it works. Like if you own it, do it.
yeah, man. I mean, and yeah, it's basically a lot of films put together. I think that's what helps with the
So how'd you
film
feel about the death? Did you think that was
predictables.
needed?
Oh yeah, I meant to say earlier, 10 minutes into the movie, I was like, this kid's gonna die. He's gonna be the one to die. He's the good son. It's pretty predictable, you know. Someone told me it's like you're gonna
Uh,
predict everything. I was like, yeah, oh, she's gonna be Jesus. Oh, he's gonna die. Oh yeah, this is gonna put a rift
so
in
do
their
you think it
marriage.
was needed?
No.
Even though you knew it, did you not feel like some kind of
I felt
response
like
to
it
that
didn't bear as much weight as it could have if the death was earlier in the film. I feel like he,
earlier?
yeah, I feel like he
When
died.
would you when I'm trying to think like when?
I feel like he dies, and then all that mess on the ship happens, and then there's a funeral, and then the movie's done. You don't really feel you you don't feel the weight of his death, really.
Avengers was like that.
Well, you talking about Infinity War, right?
Yeah, with Tony Stark dying, he dies and that's it.
Oh, you're talking about Endgame.
Endgame, yeah.
That's
He's like
different.
that.
That's
Yeah,
different. That
is
death
it?
was built up for like a whole decade, bro. Like you could feel the weight of his death because that character was with us for like a decade. Natayem, his name, whatever. He was with us for 3 hours. That's
Three
it.
hours. That's a long time,
He was
bro.
barely
That's a
in those 3 hours though.
no. I think
Loak was in those three
I
hours.
think it was needed because it's not so much of the impact of the loss, so much of how he wanted to showcase how the other characters are responding to it. Because Zoe Saldana's character, you said her name's Natiri. Did I say
Natiri,
that
yeah.
right?
Mhm.
Natiri. How she responds to that really makes the end of the movie.
It does, but you don't really see it that long because they have to go get their daughters. So he's like, look, look, I need you to be with me now. And that was a powerful moment. But he was like,
That
I
was a
need you
very
to be with
powerful.
me.
That was a very powerful. No, I'm just saying when she goes on the blood rage
Oh yeah,
of
I
her
love
just
that
kill.
part.
She kills like 100 dudes in like 2 minutes. I love
Yes.
it. And like finally, we actually show the capability of what she's able to do as a warrior. You know,
Oh yeah.
she can just destroy anyone easy. And
Side
I
note,
love to.
his directing of action scenes is so great.
Oh, it's
So great.
great. It's like, dude,
So
dude,
great.
Terminator 2, like
Oh yeah.
that right there should make the resume. It doesn't matter if he doesn't make another action scene ever again in his life.
Yeah.
Terminator 2, let's be real. Now, granted, he doesn't like guns, so you can tell the scenes were chopped up because he didn't want to
Yeah.
showcase so much gun violence, right? Which is one of the loony things he was talking about. But
Yeah, he spoke about this, people. He said it. He cut a
yeah,
lot of gun stuff.
and I'm like, you can tell where it was cut on a reason. It's like
Yeah.
I feel like if you're look, it's already 3 hours and 30 minutes. What's an extra 8 minutes of people having action? Let's be real. You can't
He
sell
said
them
it
for an
made him
extra
sick
eight
to his
minutes.
stomach, though. It
Uh,
made him sick to his stomach.
well, he should stop making movies then. All right, because I'll tell you something right now. A good friend of mine, I was talking to him about this. Cuts my hair, does a great job. He said, I will go to see Avatar so I can see a bunch of big guns and aliens fight each other. I'm like, thank you. Thank you. That's the whole point. You see giant mechs, you see these natives with barely any technology kill these things, and these mechs with giant guns and humans with these giant guns. Like that's the point, right? And I feel it's like, what do you think that humans are going to do? They're going to use sticks to invade a planet? Like they're not. You have
Spider
guns.
would.
That's
Spider would do that.
No,
But
but other than that, that's probably my main critique. But other than that, it was powerful because you can kind of tell during that chase scene through the capsized ship when the kids were trying to get out and he gets tagged. You're like, oh boy, here we go, and it makes you think like, okay, so how does everyone respond to this? Jake is kind of like he compartmentalizes it because he was a special operator in the Marine Corps, and
yeah,
so
yeah,
he already knows how to do this.
he's
Like he
ready to
has no
rumble.
choice,
He's like, let's
and
go.
and it sucks because like that moment when Natsui was talking to Jake about like they're only kids, he was like, well, we can't be afford to have them live like kids right now because we're being invaded. Like that's a beautiful moment because a lot of
Yeah.
people don't realize like that's how half the world operates. Like Earth, this is how half of Earth operates. Like half of human population is in some kind of terrible situation. If that's a war zone, if it's mass poverty, anything like that. So this is how people are, and I think that you can resonate with that. I can resonate with that, but it's
Mhm.
just I I really appreciated that moment. I'm like, dang man, these kids can't really be kids. Like
Oh
the
yeah.
the 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 young renegade can't go out and have fun with his girlfriend or anything like that. And I'm like, that
You
kind of
see it in the
sucks.
beginning of the movie how the two boys talk about how their dad taught them how to use machine guns. It's like,
Yeah,
oh,
and fight
geez. Yeah.
like when they're getting picked on by the water tribe like kids and stuff, and
Oh,
then both of them took them out. I'm like, well, you already know that they're gonna beat them up.
I
Let's
love
be
that
real.
scene. I love that scene because I knew exactly where he was gonna go when he said, this hand can do a lot of things. And I was like, oh, he's gonna punch him. He's gonna punch him. He was like, it can curl up like this. And then he's just
Punch him.
bah! And the
Beautiful.
kid, the reaction of the kid's face was perfect. He was like, oh, my nose.
Perfect dad moment. Such a good human moment. He was like, all right, I'm going to punish you. And it was like, all right, how did they look? A lot worse.
Yeah.
I'm like, great. I love that.
He
That's
was like,
like,
good.
for anyone, like, being a Marine father, like, that is the most quintessential Marine father you can say to your son ever. And I
Right.
love that. You know what I mean? And it's like, that touches me. So it's just, I like all of those integrations of that. Like you really feel for the Navi in pretty much every aspect of the movie, and you could care less that your own humans are attacking this planet and they're evil. Like you automatically see them as evil and you really want to root against them. It's fascinating that he did it so well.
Um, so you touched on something about the gun violence, and I think brace yourself. I think I'm gonna ruin the end of the franchise for you. So remember how we talked about earlier how we talked about
He's
how
going to
then
ruin it, but yeah, I got you.
the Navi have to adapt. They can't just keep fighting with spears and bow and arrows against mechs and
Uh-huh.
stuff.
It's
Um,
true.
logic would say that, right? So I think what's going to happen
Don't say it.
because the planet is alive
Don't say it.
and Kitty is
Don't
Jesus,
say it.
I believe the
Oh my
planet
god.
will destroy every
Of course.
single
Yeah. Of course.
human visitor. Just like
What
in the
a
first movie, we forget in the first movie the animals heard the call of Jake and came to the rescue to fight them. I think the plants, the oceans,
Did
the
you ever see
animals.
The Happening?
Yes.
All
We're
right.
gonna have
So
the
anyone who
happening
hasn't seen The
Avatar
Happening,
edition.
all right, I'm going to do a minor detract from this. The Happening is either one of M. Night Shyamalan's greatest movies or worst movies, depending on how you see the movie. Because if you look at it and you have no idea how his movies are, you're like, this is probably the worst written movie and acted movie ever in the
Oh yeah,
human history. But someone made a good point to me. It's like,
the
the reason
concept
why they
still
act that way is because they're in constant shock and people don't know how to react when they're in constant shock. I was like, holy crap, I'm seeing the movie completely different now.
right.
And I'm like, he did that on purpose. He made them completely unaware and just completely stupid and just not knowing how to communicate with anyone on purpose. I'm like, oh my God, like he's a genius.
Well,
At first I thought I was like, man, he just did another bad one. I'm like, how can you have the writing so bad? I'm like, Mark Wahlberg, like, how dare you even do this?
I mean,
But the whole point is the Earth turns on the Earth makes people crazy and makes them kill themselves. And as soon as you said that, I'm like, all right, that's the happening.
That's going to be Avatar 6 or whatever. Avatar 6, The Happening. Or It's Happened. Or It's Happening. You know, I mean, you know, the concept of The Happening is kind of brilliant. Uh, yeah, I mean, if they're in shock, that let me not try
So
to
do you really
defend The
think that's
Happening.
going to go, or are you just saying that just to
No,
just
I
to?
really think that. I mean, after reading about how it made him sick to his stomach with all the violence, and how these movies have just been a kind of like a PBS special about how we need to save the earth, the oceans, and stuff like
Which is
that.
true, yes, we should.
We
But at
should,
the
we
same
should.
time, it's like, look, we don't have a planet without bullets and guns. Not a planet. We don't have a country without bullets and guns. I hate to break it to people. You know what I
I
mean? It's
mean,
just
I'm kind of mad that well, you made me think of this, of the ending of Avatar 6. But spoiler alert, people, the planet is going to kill all the human invaders with their guns and their mechs, and then the Navi are going to thank their mother world and
Yahweh,
then gather. Yeah, what's it called? Maui or something
Yahweh,
like that? It's
Yahweh,
called it's called Yahweh in
something
the
like
movie.
that.
It's
Yeah,
it's
I think
it's
so.
very close because they said it in the movie. I was like, yo, that sounds a lot like Yahweh. But I
I'm
think it's
pretty
like
sure it
Maui or
is
something.
Yahweh.
I think it's Maui or something like that. But I think the Navi are going to gather up all the machines and the guns of the humans after they're dead, destroy them. Like, oh yeah, no, and the Navi will forever
Yeah.
be protected by their world, and time will move on. They'll forever be, tribes people with sticks and riding
So
banshees.
so how? I just want your opinion on this. How does someone like Cameron, who has made a living, he has made his career on big guns and violence, what possessed him to go down this road? I'm not thinking politically. I'm just thinking for the sake of your legacy. Now all of a sudden you want to change. Like you've built your brand on this.
Well,
Like how does this work?
I don't think it's all of a sudden. I think it's been through the years. He's done a lot of documentaries about life under water, which is why I think that's
I
why he
did
took
like
this
that one. That with
direction.
the submarine. That was fascinating.
Yeah, he's done a lot of documentaries and he's produced a lot of stuff about it. So I think it's been boiling over time. I think he was always going to end up at this route, with the way of water and stuff. But it also comes with age. Age, you get a different perspective on life. I mean, I know I'm only in my 30s, but the way I view things is totally different than when I was viewing them when I was 20. I think it comes
I
with
can
age.
personally attest to that, guys.
Yeah,
I'm just telling you that he's not being hyperbolic. It's true.
yeah. And I think it just comes
Me
with
too.
age and the stuff the films he's been making, the documentaries he's been making, and I do think it's strange that now he's disgusted with guns. But that being said, it's a fantasy franchise. I mean, someone pointed out to me the other day, he was like, Avatar movies are just animated movies. They're just very high tech animated movies. I was like, that's very true. I'm not to say that animation is kiddish or anything like that. One of the greatest movies I've
Right.
seen last
We
year
keep
was
forgetting
Pinocchio.
because of how well done it was. Like you had such a personal attachment to these characters, and you typically don't have that in animated movies. And it's just like, man, you got to remember, like, this is completely made up. All of it.
Exactly, man. Like, and like animation is good for anything. Pinocchio, Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio. Everybody should see it on Netflix. It's an amazing movie. I'm glad it won a Golden Globe. It's amazing, and it's an animated movie. It's a stop motion movie. But the Avatar franchise is doing what a lot of documentaries wish they could do, and James Cameron just figured out, hey, look, I can put this message in a documentary, or I can put it in an action movie that everybody will watch and enjoy.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what he's doing, and he's going to keep it going, you know. But yeah, I think that's the genius of James Cameron. He's doing a documentary to save the planet, but he's doing it with mechs, blue cats, and leotard thongs.
Sexy.
So, Nomads. That was a long discussion on um Avatar: The Way of Water, but I hope you know why, because it's a very long movie. So I hope you learned some things, and I hope you have your own opinion. Let us know your opinions, man.
Yeah, love
But
it.
Zach, thanks for coming out, and
Of course, brother.
peace. Be creative, my nomads. Peace.